that kind of the pain that you felt and still being able to play sport at a very high level?
Well, first of all, you got to have a partner that you can say yours to. And so the partner would go get the blobs because I would get lob because I love the lob. And so having a mobile partner was so important to me because both of us can't be mobile. But, when you have bone on bone with no cartilage there, you can do a couple things to be able to, prolong the inevitable. But yeah, just not being able to get up to the winning line, I like to call it, instead of the kitchen line, the winning line. It really is important to get to that line. And so when you can't get there quickly, then people like Jose DeRisi can kind of make you pay for that. And so, I'll challenge people to go ahead and listen to your body and get what needs to be done, even if it means you're going to be out of the sport for a while, because, we all want to get back on the court. That's the whole thing, is to do what we need to do to get back on the court. And so, but to answer your question, Tony, having a supportive partner who's going to encourage you no matter your limitations is so important. And be kind to yourself and forgive yourself when you are not performing like, you want to perform. But, it's all about just getting out there and having fun and getting exercise and having that social connection with people. So, don't let an injury or a nagging problem, ruin pickleball for you, because it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I like that perspective, Stephanie, of, first of all, if you have something going on with you, deal with it, even though you may be off court for a little bit, just get it done like you did with your knee. You bit the bullet, so to speak, and said, all right, I'm getting the knee done. And then, like you said, it's why are you out there? You're out there. It's that body-mind connection that we talked about. So thanks a lot, Stephanie, for sharing that story about yourself. So.
All righty, Dylan, we're going to pick on you now because we got it. Most of us on the panel, I think, with the exception of Nicole, have a few years on you. But here's the thing. I know you're young, but man, you guys are playing a killer schedule this year. I mean, you are playing a lot of tournaments. I know it can be grueling on the body. I'm starting to see some of the pro players wearing wraps on this part and braces on this part. What are you doing to keep your body ready and get your body ready to play so many tournaments?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And the tournament schedule this year is pretty tough, and we're often traveling from one tournament to the next with only a couple of days off, and usually one of those days we're traveling. And so it really is like, going from one tournament to the next and not a lot of time off. For me personally, I found that the best way to kind of take care of your body, like Stephanie said, listen to your body for one. Like if something's hurting, you got to take care of it. But preventative care is super important. Like, stretching, hydrating, eating enough food so that you're ready. You've got, your carbs for the next day if you're going to play singles or several events even in one day. So trying to be prepared and prevent the problems from ever occurring. Sometimes if the problem's happening, it's a little bit too late and you're not in as good a position to deal with it at that point. And then, to speak on what Coach Pete here talked about on the mental side is also equally as important to take care of. And I like how he put it, like, just make sure that you're out there having fun. At the end of the day, like, don't put too much pressure on yourself winning or losing, because I'll tell you what, the mental side can sometimes be more challenging to deal with than the physical side. And but at the end of the day, if you're out there having fun and you're going to go back and you're competing against yourself, right? Don't compete against, sometimes it's very easy to get caught up in the competition. You've got a lot of players that with kind of the same goals that you have. But as long as you are forming a better version of yourself each and every day, then you're winning. So compete against yourself. I like to say, I know other people have said that as well. Take care of the body, drink lots of water, especially, a lot of these tournaments we're playing in super hot conditions. Like, it's super easy to get dehydrated very quickly. A lot of electrolytes and a lot of water are super important, and something that I definitely pay attention to.
I will say this, one of the things I really like is, especially when I see you playing with JW, right? Because I think you've probably been playing with him the longest. You guys look like you're having fun. I know it's not always like, yeah, or, but you look at each other and you genuinely look comfortable with each other and having fun out on the court. And like, you'd be doing this if there wasn't cameras and prize money. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, and it's beneficial to you as well because it helps you perform better. Like it helps you play a little bit looser, and so if you're, it serves both purposes. One, it kind of keeps you in a better mental state of mind, and that leads to better performance. So definitely super important. Something that we intentionally do at times. Sometimes we're not out there like having a casual conversation, but like almost forceful, playful banter at times to attempt to loosen us up out on the court.
Ooh,
Yeah,
there's another secret.
Yeah, the paddle taps. I've spoken to Dylan about this before. Is that I love how he and JW paddle tap. I think paddle tapping is a fantastic part of our sport. I do it with tennis players, and they all it's coming over and they don't really know about it. And but Dylan and JW, if they don't, they'll tap paddles 2, 3, 4 times between points, which I think is fantastic technique. So thanks, Dylan, for sharing that. That's really awesome.
Yep.
Jose Derisi, I'm going to switch it to you now because Jose, you're a senior pro player. You can tell by the hair, but you maintain a very you're very good shape for playing also a tournament schedule that you play with the MPL and the APPs and the tournaments that you play, plus the teaching that you do. Is there any secret that you can share about how you approach your body to keep your body in the shape that it's in to be able to stay as competitive as you are?
I would say in the last year, I kind of regained some of the fitness that I lost. I was on and off on the fitness. And in this, I would say last 6 months, I kind of regained some of the fitness I lost. It was primarily, in my case, nutrition based. That's how I approached it. And with some compliments on some training. But the benefits that I realized that gave me on the pickleball court is not just that I get to the balls like faster and so on, but it helped me with my decision making. I was finding that because I was exhausted when I was not fit, it affected my decision making. I was tired, so when I got to the ball, I didn't see many options. When I'm fit, I get to the ball earlier. Footwork is better. I can get to the ball, hit the ball at its apex, which, with all the benefits that it brings. But I also see maybe, 3 or 4 balls that I can hit. I see choices. My decision making gets so much better. And that's kind of the communication, if you want, between body and mind. Being better fit. When we feel better, we can that improves a lot our decision making. That's how I feel when we get fit. We can make much better choices. We see the choices. I didn't see the choices first. My only choice was to put the ball back in play. When we feel better, I saw more choices. So I would say that's one of the main benefits. And there again, the correlation between body and mind.
I like what you said there, Jose, is you were talking about not being able to see the choices, right? It's not
Yes.
that it's not that you don't know the choices. Obviously, at your level, you have an infinite larger amount of choices than most players have, but you weren't able to see the right choice. And I think players too often overlook that and attribute it just not to knowing, not as you did. You said it was about nutrition, right? It was about the things that I was doing weren't helping me when I was on the court.
Yeah, like the choices were from, if I now see 5 to 6 choices per ball when the ball is kind of sitting, I would have seen 1 or 2. I know they were there, but not online for me to make the proper decision. So they were not there. So it's a big difference.
All right. Thank you. All right, Nicole, you are up next. And actually, you may not know this. I have known Nicole longer than I have known Tony. That's because she used to live right down the street. And I know that unfortunately you have had to deal with some pretty significant injuries, and you're now coming back from those. So tell us a little bit about that, maybe how you've stayed engaged and like how you're planning to come back just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my case is unfortunate. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I played Division I tennis at UC Berkeley, and I just really stemming from back then. I had a chronic injury, and it never really fully got addressed as much as I tried, as many doctors as I saw. It just kept lingering. When I discovered pickleball, I guess it was 2016, I started like training hard, trying to get ready to play high level, even pro probably. And it just crushed me. So, and it became clear that I didn't know fully what it was, and I didn't know when I didn't even know if I would be able to play pickleball like again at any reasonable at all really and at any level. So it's tough because it like strips your identity away, because I saw myself as a player. I was a coach as well, but I really just had to let go of the player part and rotate into the coaching part 100%. It's a painful process, but if you are dealing with something like I think Stephanie was saying, you do have to shut it down for a time. And I don't think you'll be in my case where mine's like years. So, but when that does happen, look for what you can do. And that's just be as optimistic as you can. Because yes, a certain part has been taken away that maybe you love tremendously, but there's so much else you can do. In my case, like I said, I leaned into coaching. I leaned into other skills, which were like helping people online via video. Luckily, the feedback's been amazing, but you just have to, and I still do like a lot of breakdowns of strategy, and I'm still shadow swinging at home, doing paddle taps and whatnot. So anything I can do, even though it's not the level I would like to, you can still keep yourself engaged and do little things that will continue to bridge the gap between the injury and when you can actually get back onto court. So, and now as this year has really been a pivotal turning point. About early last year, I really figured out what it was, and I put together a system to address it, and it's going a lot faster now. In my case, there's a pelvic twist and mobility issues throughout my whole body that just take a long time to work through. But you got to give it the time, got to give it the patience. And now I can relate more to my students, because I'm in the process of planning to rebuild my fitness, my game, my mental approach. So I'm excited for that, because I'll really be going through what people are going through, and I think I'll be able to be closer to it. Because when like Dylan has great insights. I love what he said, but like he's at a high level of play, and that everyone is aspiring to. But sometimes, like I remember when I was like playing high level, I maybe lost a little bit of touch with what beginners and like 2.5 players are dealing with. So I'm going to be right there with you, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for sharing that, Nicole. Yeah, the idea that you can't do anything pickleball related when you're injured doesn't make sense, right? Because you're talking about, like you're talking about strategic breakdowns, strategic studies, like Coach Pete talked about, like, solving the puzzle, right? You can solve the puzzle from a chair, and then when you go out and play, you're going to be better for it, right? You'll be able to see things better. But let's wrap on the athletic pillar, because I think it's an area that players can, if you spend some time on the athletic pillar, it'll really help your game. You heard even from Jose Derisi talking about being able to see 5 options versus 2. That's an advantage of the athletic pillar. You heard Dylan talking about how he prepares with all the steps that he takes to play his best pickleball. Here are some things that you can do right now. 4 things I'm going to share with you can do right now if you want to start working on your athletic pillar. A great place to start is Coach Pete's course. Coach Pete has a course called Winning the Mental Game. I mean, who doesn't want to do that, right? Win the mental game. And he's going to take you through some steps that'll help you know how to navigate that jazz, right? How to play jazz when you're out there on the court. For the body, CJ Johnson has a fantastic 8-week fitness challenge. That'll get you in pickleball shape. And then the summit, we talked about having 8 presentations around the athletic pillar. You can still have access to the all access pass. It's in the academy. And then we have a podcast, Pickleball Therapy. You can check that out, all about the mental part of pickleball. So those are 4 things that you can start right now on the athletic pillar. And then each one of these topics that we're covering, we're going to be sharing with you these next steps on each one as we go through.
Yeah, and hey, Tony, I just wanted to mention that everything that you talked about is available inside of the Better Pickleball Academy. And if you're with us tonight, don't worry about writing this down. We're going to send you an email listing with all the courses, with all the courses that we have from all these different coaches. And you do have some summit bucks that you can apply towards your academy classes. So, all right. Now let's turn it. Let's turn to the next topic. The one that I think everybody is always so excited about is the one difficult obstacle in the sport. And sometimes pickleball can be daunting. I mean, I live in the mountains, and sometimes it feels like I picked Mount Talac, which is our highest mountain on the lake. It's a little over 10,000 feet, and I decided to hike it. And that's sometimes what pickleball feels like to me. But you can simplify the process if you're just doing one step at a time, right? If you're really focused on that improvement path. So Nicole, we're going to put you up first. I know that you spend a lot of time thinking about the improvement paths of players. So what's like one thing you'd recommend to a player who maybe is at that point where they've plateaued in their game and they're really looking to break out of it?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like sometimes when we plateau, it's because we're maybe not keeping things fresh and we're like knocking really hard on the door of like one thing. Like maybe you're trying to work on your backhand and you just spend a lot of time doing this one particular drill, and your backhand's kind of fluctuating up and down. You're not really you were seeing some breakthroughs, but now you're kind of not. Well, like pivot to what's on your list number 2 of what you want to improve the most. Like keep things fresh. Either stick with the same skill and do a different drill, like just approach it from a different angle, like just freshen it up in some way. Just don't keep hammering at the same nail in the same way. So that's kind of what I would suggest is freshen it up, but keep moving. And as Coach Pete was saying, like you probably are being really hard with yourself. So don't beat yourself up as a person. You're still a good person, whether your backhand improved this week or it didn't. So give yourself some freedom, relax. Like you'll notice when you relax, and that's when like the plateau, you kind of start to break through and you start looking things with fresh eyes. You relax, fresh eyes, relax. That's what's going to let you break through past that hurdle. Because at that time, it's more mental than probably physical at that point.
Cool. Awesome.
I'm going on to Dylan. I want to hear from. I think I got a little feedback there. I think if everybody can lower their volume a little bit on their thing, we'll get a little less feedback, I think, on our system here. So that'd be awesome. All right. So, Dylan, I want to ask you a question. So we mentioned earlier about you rising up to number 1, but I think for players out there, they may think, okay, so Dylan came in at number 4, right? And then he rose to number 1, or he was already like, playing professional tennis, or he was a D1 tennis player, something like that. They may not know the fact that you came in as a 3-5, right? You started playing with your mother in some tournaments. You came in as a 3-5, and you have gone from a 3-5 without a college tennis background like that, all the way to the top player in the sport. Can you share with us maybe one mountain that you climbed along the way that kind of sticks out to you? Something that you go, that one thing that I climbed when I look in my rearview mirror was the thing that was the biggest advancement at any level that you were at between 3-5 and today.
Yeah, sure. So I would say, well, I'll say that the biggest thing that helped me raise my level was playing against higher level competition. That being said, though, it is very important to drill shots that you lack or want to get better at, as well as I think play against even lower level players at times where you maybe have a little bit more freedom to try some new things out and get reps that way. But I used to travel to Wichita, Kansas to play a lot against Jay DeVilliers, Patrick Smith, Matt and Lucy, Chris Heck. And you learn really quickly what you can get away with and what you can't get away with at the highest level. And you can either sink or swim, essentially. And so always testing your stuff out against higher level players, or at least a level that you're trying to achieve, is very important, because those players will punish you for making shots that aren't very effective, and you'll be able to see what shots are effective at that level that you're trying to reach. So that was the biggest thing for me, playing higher level players, but also almost equally as important was spending a lot of time drilling and doing some one-on-one drill sessions with my drill partner, whoever that may be. And I really like what CJ said about, focusing on one thing at a time. I definitely live by that. When I go out and practice, I maybe have 1 or 2 things in mind that I'm going to work on for the entire hour and a half that I'm out there drilling, it's literally just a couple of shots and trying to get muscle memory down. A lot of pickleball is muscle memory, and if you can kind of master the basics, a lot of the basics, and when I say basics, I mean like dinking, making your way from the baseline to the kitchen line. A lot of it is muscle memory and just getting a lot of repetitions. And so if you can go out there and drill with someone and you can do a shot, hundreds of times, and that's really going to help kind of hammer home your technique and consistency, which is super important. And then once you get comfortable doing that drilling, you can kind of take it out there, play against some players your own level, maybe a little bit lower than you, and continue to develop your shots there. And then once you're feeling really good about it, take it to the group that's a half level higher than you or a full, point higher than you, whatever. And you can see if you can get away with it there, and you can take it back, and you figure out what needs refinement, what you've got to throw away, and what else you can work on. And then you can kind of repeat the process. Okay, back to the drilling court. I'm going to focus on these couple of things. I'm going to develop it, get the muscle memory down, and then I'm going to kind of test it out against some of these higher level players and see if it works. And it's just a repetitive cycle that you can continue to go through.
I love it. So that's a great approach for climbing the mountain, right? Whatever the mountain is, whether it's third shot, volleys, transition zone, whatever it is, you identify the thing, work on it, and then work through that cycle you mentioned. That's really awesome, Dylan. Really appreciate it. Stephanie, going to switch to you. We're going to now. So Stephanie, if you don't know Stephanie's a coach's coach. What that means is Stephanie actually trains and certifies the coaches who teach pickleball. That's one of her roles inside our sport through the IPTPA certification program. So, Stephanie, from the coaches that you've interacted with, on the regular, right? You're always out there with coaches. What would you say is the number one obstacle that you're seeing out there in terms of players' improvement? The thing that's maybe holding players back and should maybe be the mountain that they seek to climb?
It's a great question. And we have great discussions in those, certification workshops where we're certifying people to teach beginners. And so when we do that, it's so important. The coaches come in there, Tony and CJ, and they've never heard of starting somebody to teach them at the kitchen line, starting at the winning line and work our way back. So we learn the game from the inside out. And that's just really a big eye-opening, concept for these coaches. And so once you kind of learn that, your whole, environment is just broadened, and it's just amazing to watch them. Once you get them up there and start teaching them, talking about grip pressure, because I thought if I was asked the question of, what's your one tip? And it was like, when somebody mentioned, I don't know if it was Wesley Gabrielson or somebody helped me, that said, are you aware that you should be changing your grip pressure throughout the whole point? I'm like, what? Because, players just grip that one white knuckle grip, and you can't hardly pry the paddle out of their hand. And so once we get those concepts through, it's just amazing how quickly the improvement comes. And just simple things like, when we hit the ball, are we making it bounce on the other side of the net? Because when we give somebody a ball in the air, we're giving them an attack against us. And so I love to watch the light bulb moments just go off when they get those basic concepts of how pickleball is really a simple game. It's so easy to learn. We know that. We know it's difficult to master, but helping those coaches learn those key basic concepts just starts the learning, and just then they can share it with other people. And then that's what our sport's like. We just share the love and the joy and the happiness, and it just changes lives. And I'm just so thankful that I'm a part of it.
That's awesome. So that's awesome, Stephanie. Because you're right. One of the things it does is it really does change people's lives. And that's the beautiful part of our sport, I think. I mean, after all, would we all be here together if it wasn't for pickleball? I mean, come on, we're all from all parts of the country and world here. I mean, that's pretty cool. All right, Jose, the last couple of years, you've really kicked some butt in the senior pro ranks. So is there like one mountain in your journey that just really sticks out to you, and maybe something that you did to overcome it?
Well, I think when I think about this question, I think like a sequence and a series of mountains to go. I think at the very beginning, or at the beginning as a player, we tend to focus on us, which is the basically execution, how we hit shots. So it's all about us. Then after that mountain, the next one is like how do we play with our partners? So it's us and our partners. So that helps us with court positioning. We are not only thinking about how we hit the shot, but how we move with our partner. Then after that, the next mountain in sequence is we start to look at the opponents. It's not just about us and our partner, but we start to look at the opponents, where they are they in a correct court positioning? And all that helps us in, I think, decision making. Where to attack, how to defend, who do we want to target, things like that. How to construct the point, because we are aware not just about us and our partner, but we're aware of what the opponents are doing. And I think I would say the last stage or the last mountain is where we can see the game, our own game, as if we were outside of the court, watching the game as if we were our own coach. We have the number one player of the world here, Dylan, so he's like well beyond all this. But I would think this is kind of a sequence of how we get better, and of course, climbing each mountain has its own process. But I think at the beginning is us, then how we play with our partners, then how we play against different opponents, and at the end, how we become our own coaches, and that will help us with strategy. That's kind of how I approach it.
Man, I got to tell you, there's so many things in pickleballs that come in threes, right? I mean, it's like three different things. And like you said, first we got to focus on us, and then it gets a little bigger. We just keep growing, right? We keep our depth of knowledge keeps us growing and it gives us the ability to see things that maybe we couldn't see a year ago, or maybe we weren't ready for at that point in time.
Jose, I'm taking notes so that next time I play you, I know what the secret is. So I'm ready for the next match.
All right. Hey, Coach Pete, you are up, and we've talked about some shots and some strategies. But we also know that players can see improvement when it comes to their mental focus. So is there like one area that you think a player should start with to start down the path of having a more complete mental side of their game? Oh, hang on, Coach Pete. I'm sorry. I forgot to unmute you.
Oh, okay.
That's always gonna happen.
That's fine. I was talking anyway, so I just keep talking. There's so many things I want to build on from what everybody else has said. That I'll just say this: understand what the improvement process is about. This is the improvement panel, right? Improving is about change. And change, if you really want change that holds up under pressure, under game and match competition pressure, it's got to be deep. It can't just be superficial. You can't watch a video and that's it, one video. You've got to watch a lot of videos. You got to go out on the court. You've got to take lessons. You've got to try things in competition. It takes time. I think a lot of recreational players are not patient enough with the improvement process. They expect, big changes in a short amount of time. And the frame of reference needs to be big dreams, but small goals over an extended period of time. Small improvements that accumulate and accumulate, right? They just bring geometric returns over time. The other thing is, as we go up the ladder of skill, the improvement gets harder. You have to put in more work for less change. As a beginning player, you're making improvements in big chunks, fast. Everything's happening. It's like wonderful. But as you get better and better, you get to 4.0 and above, things are getting slower and you have to put in more work. And so is everybody else at your level. There are fewer of you, and it just gets harder and harder. So the mindset of this has to be patience, and that I love doing all this work and all this discipline. You can't just love the playing. If you want to improve, you've got to love everything. You've got to love, Jose talked about nutrition. You've got to love the nutrition. You've got to love the working out in the gym. You've got to love the pickleball specific stuff you're doing for mental and physical training. But that's going to take time to create new habits that replace your old habits that are less effective. So be patient with yourself. Give yourself time. Small goals accumulated over time create big change as time goes by.
So I just want to say this and like kind of bring this out. I kind of unmuted everybody. If I heard one thing from here, it is one thing at a time, right? from each and every one of you. You all said it in very different ways, but that's what I heard loud and clear.
100%. Una cosa a la vez. They don't speak Spanish. They speak Spanish better. Anybody speak French or any other language, you can throw it in there too. One thing at a time, no matter the language. So.
All right. I mean, and I have to say I really like that because it was one thing at a time, and I think that we've all seen it, not just in the players that we coach. I think that we at times have probably experienced it in ourselves, right? When we're trying to do too much and we don't get the results that we expect, and it's frustrating, right? It gets frustrating. So, one of the things that we're going to suggest that you focus on is that one thing at a time. And the good news is we do have some resources to help you to cover that. If you are focused on mastering the transition zone so that you can get from that baseline up to the non-volley zone line, which is that is the hardest place in pickleball. That #1 pro in the world, Dylan Frazier, who's up here on the side of the screen, he's got a course in the academy to help you gain the confidence and the skills that you need to get it done. It was so exciting, shooting the course with you and seeing how the course has turned out, because it's such good information there. And then lobs, we know that for a lot of you, lobs are just, you say the word lobs and it's like la 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 la. Everybody is like, oh my God. And they are a ton of problems. So Tony Roy has a lob coverage class. And it's a defense master class. And so if lobs are a problem, this course is going to be your answer. We do have another lob class. We're going to tell you that in about that in a minute. But if you need to defend the lobs, this is the one you want. And then the better you play your return to serve, the harder it's going to be to score points against you. So super coach Scott Tingley has a course in the academy that's going to help you to apply some greater pressure to your opponents so that you get out of the gate fast.
CJ, that one thing at a time is absolutely critical, and those courses are awesome. So I'm signing up for all 3 of them. But if you're not really sure what to do, you're like, I want to find my area, and I'm around the 4.0 plus area. Nicole Havlicek's got the course to you. She got a 4.0 plus court control course that is really going to help you. It covers a wide swath of the sport and challenge you to think maybe differently about the game and find the area that's really holding you back and unleash you. And last but not least, some of us are over 50. I think most of us on the panel, except for maybe Nicole and Dylan. So there's different ways of approaching the game when you're over 50, right? Different strategies, different ways of thinking about it. And we have one of the legends of the game, Coach Deb Harrison, that's going to teach you how to keep up with those young whippersnappers out there and keep playing pickleball. So CJ, I want to pivot to our last point of the evening that we have to cover, which I know a lot of players are excited about, which is how to score more points faster. Everybody wants to do that, right? So we're going to turn to offense, and we're going to talk here about unpredictability, right? So becoming unpredictable is going to be sort of the theme. But because being unpredictable basically creates uncertainty in our opponents, right? And sometimes that could be adding a new weapon, right? So I know how to do these 2 things, but let me add a 3rd thing to it. Sometimes it could mean knowing, where to attack from and what to do in those situations. We're going to talk about that. So I'm going to start with Jose Lerici, because Jose Lerici on the senior pro circuit is known as one of the most unpredictable and creative, aggressive players we have out on the senior pro tour. And so, Jose, will you share with us one area that you see that maybe an intermediate player, right, can work on to say, I'm going to add some offense into my game by focusing on this area?
Yes, I think one of the key things, we can see the game in terms of a game of deception against anticipation, especially when the 4 players are at the kitchen So I think one area that we have to work a lot to have like effective attacks is work on our deception in our shots. In order to be deceptive, I would say all shots should look very similar before we start attacking. So the opponent will have a tough time anticipating what we do. So if you're going to take, let's say, a kind of a yellow ball out of the air, that volley should look alike, whether we're going to hit a perfect lob, let's say like Stephanie Lane, or we're going to hit like a perfect like attack down the line like Dylan would do, or we will do like a dink volley. All those shots should look alike, so the opponent knows that we are going to do something, but they don't know what. I think that is a big part of being deceptive, having those shots look alike. And second, which is complementary to that, if we have 3 or 4 shots that look alike, sometimes we make the mistake of hitting like primarily 1 or 2 of these shots. We should use for all of them, so we have the variety of our shots. It's part of our deception. We should be hitting all different shots most of the time. They should look alike, but also we should use the entire variety of shots that we have, so the opponents know that something is coming. They don't know what is coming. That's, I would say, the main approach.
And I've been the victim of Jose's unpredictability on the court many times. I can tell you it's extreme. I tell Stephanie Lane, I can tell you it's very effective not knowing. And I'll tell you this: if you ever watch Dylan playing one of his matches, that's one of his superpowers. Is he creates uncertainty. You can see his opponents, getting a little tight when Dylan gets a bouncer on the forehand side, because they're not sure, is he going to dink it or is it coming hot? And where's it coming hot? I don't know. So thanks, Jose, for sharing that.
All righty. All right, Coach Pete. Just picking up just a tiny bit of background noise, but that's okay. All right. So Coach Pete, talk a little bit about that effect of the unpredictability on our minds, and how does, like what Jose talked about, right? When you're playing against Jose, you don't know where it's coming or when it's coming. You know it's coming. What kind of effect does that have on your mind, and what can you do to quiet your mind?
Well, the first thing is you've got to love it. That's the jazz, the uncertainty of playing, not knowing, and hopefully your opponents don't know what's coming from you as well. So now you have 4 people in dubs who are giving it everything they have with no excuses, and it's uncertain who's going to win. You're in a great match, right? So win or lose, you're in a great match. So you try and maintain that. I love being here. I expect every game to be close. Expect every shot to be tough. Expect every opponent to be resilient and tough. That's what you want. That's going to bring out the best. So that's the mindset. I think the other thing is when you look at court positioning, unpredictability, you don't know where it's going. You and your partner cannot cover 100% of the court. So you have to decide what's the 20% you're going to give up. Okay, they may be unpredictable, but they still also are playing percentages on the other side. So you've got to know in your feel and your instinct what the most likely possibilities are of those 4 or 5 options that Jose indicated, right? He sees when he's fit. What's the most likely? They're not all equally likely. And that comes with experience and with observing the other side of the court more than you're observing yourself and your partner. So you've got to accept that there's 20% that you're not going to cover. And if they hit that 20, okay, paddle applause. On to the next point. What's our plan for the next point?
That's awesome advice, Coach. Great stuff. Dylan, I'm gonna come right at you, Dylan. We're hitting you straight now, which is this. We talked about before, right? And I think it's an important part it's important to recognize where you came from, right? From where you've come to where you are now. is there one offensive weapon that stands out to you? And again, it could be at any level that you were at. It could be when you were 3.5, make it 3.8, 3.8 to 4.2, whatever. Something that you added to your game that you were like, this is a great toy, and it works at most levels. That way, a player can say, I want to do what Dylan does.
Yeah, so I would say that one thing that I added to my game fairly early on that I found to be effective at all levels of pickleball, and something that I've continued to try to build on as I've risen in the ranks is my forehand speed up off the bounce is pretty tricky from the right side and the left side. And again, we're talking about unpredictability, just having a lot of, for me, I'm kind of a forehand dominant player in some ways. And so I like to kind of dictate points with my forehand, topspin, dinks, the ability to speed up to various locations or lob or act like I'm going to speed up and then dink. Having all of those, options at my disposal is super helpful, makes it super difficult to defend. I would say that the one key to keep in mind if you're going to practice adding, different shots that you can hit from the same position is make sure that your technique looks the same. Like if I'm going to set up to hit a dink cross court with my forehand, if I can set up in the same exact way and then at the last minute, instead of dinking it, kind of flick my wrist through the middle, that's going to be super difficult to defend, because one of the things that we look for when we're defending attacks is body language that kind of gives away what we're going to do with our shot. So if I can make it look exact, like I'm going to do the same exact thing, then that becomes very difficult to defend. My body language doesn't give it away, and they kind of have to turn to other strategies to defend that shot. And one of those being, if you're familiar with my play, then you can kind of pick up on tendencies, and like maybe I dink it 80% of the time and speed up 20% of the time, and so then you can kind of start playing percentages and adjust in that way, or maybe you want to defend the shot that's the most easy to execute for me and kind of make me execute a difficult shot to win the point. But all of these things that, start to falter when I can do several different things with the ball. If I can lob, if I can dink, if I can speed up, if I can change directions with the dink, etc., makes all of those kind of defense techniques very, very difficult to execute, and kind of keeps your opponents on their heels, and they're not really sure how to defend you at that point.
That's awesome, Dylan. That's powerful stuff. If you can have, it sounds like, so if you're thinking about adding offense, what I'm hearing from Dylan is add one shot, whether it's a forehand or backhand that you really like, and then find variances from a single starting position that'll create unpredictability. Thanks, Dylan. That's really powerful. Stephanie, we're coming to you, because Stephanie, if you don't know, Stephanie Lane is she I think she still has the title. So she was known as the queen of the lob, and she used the lob offensively very successfully for many years. And, we've seen the lob becoming more frequent, Stephanie, at all levels, including the highest level. Dylan's partner, JW, is throwing up a lob once in a while here and there. He's starting to add the lob into his game, which is awesome to see. What would you say to a player who's maybe thinking about adding the offensive lob into their arsenal? What piece of advice would you give that player?
Yeah, kind of basing bouncing what Dylan just said off of that is just you gotta disguise it, right? So if you're up there at that winning line, up there at that non-volley zone line, and you're dinking, you got to make it look the same as the lob, the same as the dink. So, maybe even record yourself dinking and then lobbing and trying to get that same exact mechanic down to where nobody knows when it's coming, because it's about the element of surprise. And so if you have a little hitch and you go down lower when you're lobbing, then they know here it comes, then they're going to get a jump on you. And just, maybe not lobbing from the baseline, maybe try to let that go for a while and maybe lob only from the winning line, and then maybe some in the transition. But yeah, just getting it to be disguised and practice it where you can get, maybe a foot or two inside the baseline is a good place to start aiming. But just drilling it and practicing, you could do that by yourself by just dropping a ball and dink one, then drop a ball and lob one. And it just really, the whole mindset is to get your opponents off of the winning line and have the advantageous position on the court and get them out of there. So hope that helps.
CJ Johnson muted herself.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have.
Hey,
So
just for the record,
Yeah.
CJ is handling all the production, so CJ has to do all these moving people around and stuff like that. So CJ got a lot of things on her plate. I'm sitting here drinking water, asking questions, and staring at Jose Luis's hair, trying to figure out how to make my hair look like that.
And also, just for the record, it's kind of like a pickleball match. Tony and I always have this thing where when we're online, how many times am I going to start speaking where I'm muted, right? So the minute I do it, it's like you make that mistake with your partner that you're like, oh man, they're not going to let me live that one down. I'm going to hear about it later on. All righty. Nicole, you are up. We're talking about offensive weapons, and we've talked about several of them. Now, do you have a favorite out of these, or do you have another underrated offensive weapon that maybe we haven't talked about?
Sure. Yeah. Like starting off, I definitely want to echo off of a couple of things that have already been said is like when you get a certain type of ball and you're in that situation with that ball and your partner and your opponents are lined up in a certain way, you don't want to just have the one option on that shot, even if you're great at it, because then they're going to know it's coming and they can work to defend it. So so two things I think Jose was saying, you want to have a few different options for dealing with the same type of ball. And then number two, which Dylan said, is like when you get that ball and you have your different options, make sure that how you set up for it looks the same. If you do those two things, I mean, you're just going to be like so hard to read and just a menace, and like people won't know what to do with you. So that's number one, is like really those points were exceptional. Like everyone's just coming with awesome stuff, which I love. And then in addition to that, I would suggest if you're going to lean on one variety of shot more heavily, because it's so offensive, I would go with topspin. Start leaning into topspin on like as many shots as you can, like your topspin dink, topspin drop, because by nature it's just very offensive. Because when it hits the ground, it's going to jump towards your opponent, and that's always harder to handle than a ball that just bounces and kind of sits up there, which a flat ball can tend to do, and a slice can sometimes do if you hit it a little bit too high. So your drops are going to be offensive. You're going to have an easier time closing to the winning line that we all love, that Stephanie points out. And then your dinks are going to be much more offensive. So start with working learning the top spin on all of those. And then then it's adding into the game more and more top spin on the backhand side. I'd recommend doing that with the two hands, because if you're doing it with one hand, you have to get the contact just way far out in front, and it just gets really hard to get really well set up like that every time to get that contact so in front. So one-handed topspin on the forehand, two-handed topspin on the backhand, on the dinks, on the drops, on drives too, so that you can bend it back into the court and a little bit out of reach of your opponent, or bend it down so it's dropping hard after it clears that net, even if you've hit it with some pace on it. So I'd really lean into some topspin if you are wanting to add more offensive, be a more offensive threat out there.
Awesome, Nicole. Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for your recommendations on offense. And adding offense to your game obviously can help your development as a player. And I'm going to give you some suggestions, as we said we're going to do after every section here. So let me give you some suggestions on how you can add some offense to your game to make you more predictable and effective on the offensive side. Stephanie Lane mentioned about the offensive lob, and Stephanie Lane, as a Queen of the Lob, has a course on the offensive lob that'll really help you get down that path to using that, pushing them off the line. And then we talked about, we asked Jose Luis, who's the master of unpredictability. He gave us some tips today, but in his course, he's going to teach you 3 different ways that you can approach your dinking so that you can create some more uncertainty on your opponents, including the 60% attack that I think Jose Luis has a patent on. So he'll teach you that in his course. And then there's another shot that we really like that our fellow coach and senior pro player Sarah Mitten calls the root canal. That's a dink that your opponents aren't going to like. It's called the root canal, and it feels like a root canal. You don't want that. So you check out that course if you want to improve your dinking attacks. And actually has a little bit of what Nicole talked about in it, basically pushing, driving into the past the body there. If you want a more offensive third shot, if you want to vary your third shot some more and come to a maybe more modern or more offensive third shot, you can try John Sperling's course, where he teaches you a hybrid third shot that'll increase the pressure on your opponents. And then we have a game study coming up where I'm going to walk you through recognizing attack opportunities when they are there and when they are not there. CJ, are we going to do a lightning round with the panel?
We are. All right. Everybody is off mute.
Everybody's off mute. We're going to do a lightning round here. So I'm going to ask the question, and then we're going to go around, and we'll just go in order. So we'll start with Nicole, then we'll Coach Pete, then Jose, then Stephanie, and then we'll wrap with Dylan. That's awesome. So perfect placement, CJ. So what we'll do is it's what we want to do here is it's a very short answer on one thing that you wish you had known sooner. We hear this all the time in videos and stuff like that. One thing. So one thing that you wish you had known sooner. And then after Dylan goes, CJ and I will give you our answers. So go ahead, Nicole, start us off.
Okay, one thing I wish I had known sooner is when I first started playing pickleball, I was told that when you get attacked, you reset. Like that's like the only option. So I was doing that, and I just kept getting re-attacked on, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I would not do this in tennis. But for a while I stuck with it, and I just started to realize, no, this is not working out. So if I started what I did was, if they attack from below the net, and this, keep in mind, this is like 6 or 7 years ago, so this is all known now, but it wasn't then. If they attack from below the net, I'm going to attack back on them. If they're attacking like level, I might attack back or I might reset. And if they're coming from high, I'm going to reset. So I would have avoided getting crushed for a few weeks or a month there if I had just counterattacked more.
Thanks, Nicole. Coach, you're up.
I wish I had known all the things that do not translate from tennis to pickleball, as well as the things that do. I was a great volleyer when I first picked up pickleball, but I was standing in the no volley zone, in the non-volley zone. That's why my volleys were wonderful. And running through in tennis, when we do an approach shot, we want to run through it. And getting set for getting a reset and dealing with that in pickleball was a very important lesson for me, not to keep running through and trying to reset at the same time. So, yeah.
Thank you, Coach.
Those are things that were very helpful.
And Jose, you go next, but Jose, then you have to also give us some hair tips once you're done.
So one thing I wish I knew when I started playing is that playing tournaments is so fun and makes you better. I spent my first 2 years playing pickleball without playing tournaments or so. Something I deeply regret. I wish I could change, but if you're starting, I would say start playing pickleball tournaments. It doesn't matter your level. If you can make a trip out of that, it's social, it's fun, and your game is going to get better, and you're going to get future partners. You get exposed to different type of games and so on. So the benefits are awesome. Play tournaments.
Gracias, Jose. Stephanie Lay, what you got?
That less is more, especially on the grip pressure. Less is more. The least amount of movement you can make, the least amount of pressure on that grip, just less is more.
Stephanie, you must be watching game tape or watching me play pickleball, because that's how I look on a pickleball court. All right, Dylan, what you got?
Well, I'll say that the first thing that came to my mind was actually what Coach Pete said, was just planting your feet. That was a game changer another thing that was a game changer for me early on in the development of my game, and just not running through shots. But I'll pivot to another one, which is super important, is making sure that your dinks are bouncing in the kitchen and really staying disciplined. It's very, very easy to go for an aggressive dink, but our opponents are most dangerous when they're able to attack out of the air. And when opponents start leaning in at the kitchen really, really well, it becomes super, super important to make sure that your dink is bouncing in the kitchen, and that requires a lot of discipline and restraint at times.
Awesome. Thank you, Dylan. All right, CJ Johnson, what you got for us?
For me, I think it's that I didn't have to play with a hinged wrist. I didn't come from tennis. I didn't have a hinged wrist in tennis. My first pickleball coach told me I had to have a hinged wrist, and that really caused me a lot of variability in my shots. And now I've spent a long time trying to get rid of that hinged wrist. So get with a good coach when you start.
CJ's dropping her paddle head now. She's playing better, so it was good.
You know it.
All right, and the one thing for me, and it relates to a couple of topics that have already been mentioned, but it's using the non-volley zone. It's like, you know, we start playing pickleball, especially I came from tennis, and we play like over the non-volley zone. Like the non-volley zone isn't part of the court. And then all of a sudden you play somebody who knows how to use a non-volley zone and you're a toast because you don't know how to use it and they do. And what are you going to do? So listen, all the tips you all have shared this evening with everybody, really appreciate your time and appreciate you sharing them really awesome tips. CJ, what'd you think? I thought it was amazing.
I got to tell you, you all are so amazing. Thank you so much for your summit presentations as well as your academy courses. It truly has been, it's been fun working with you to put them together and to get them filmed. And the things that you share are really going to change people's pickleball games. And I know that's what motivates everyone who's sitting here on this panel.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody. And we'll sign you up for the next year's summit.
Thank you all.
All right.
Glad you were
Thank you.
here. All
Thank you.
right.